Hey guys, what's going on? It's Clever Techie, and in this video we're going to learn how to create a random quote generator. And this is what our final project is going to look like. It's very simple. Just click the generate quote button and it generates a random quote for us along with the author. To create this app, we're going to complete 3 phases. In the first phase, we're going to scrape the actual quotes and authors of those quotes from a website called goodreads.com, and this is the page where we're going to be scraping our quotes from along with the author names. And in the second phase, we're going to create a database and insert all the collected quotes and authors into the database. And finally, in the third and last phase, we'll create an AJAX interface with CSS that looks like this, that will create a request to the database and select a random quote for us. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So here I've opened up the Clever Techie workspace, and let's go ahead and open the PHP folder, go to projects, and create a new folder inside of projects called quotes. And let's go ahead and create a new file and name it quote scraper.php, since that's the first step that we're going to be doing, is collecting or scraping our quotes. Okay, so first scrape quotes from a website, and for that we're going to be using curl. So right away I'm going to go ahead and initialize curl with curl init. Then we're going to set curl settings with curl set opt curl, and the first option we're going to set is curl opt SSL verify peer, and we're going to set it to false. And this is to load the page that has a HTTPS protocol, so just make sure to set it to false. Then let's go ahead and set another option, curl opt return transfer, set it to true. And we're setting the return transfer to true for the curl to return the content on the page right away. And the last option we're going to set is curl opt user agent. We're going to set it to Mozilla 5.0. And the user agent is sometimes needed because some websites will not allow requests unless they have a user agent. Now let's get the URL where we're going to be scraping our quotes from. So go to goodreads.com/quotes, and as you can see here on the right hand side where it says browse by tag, it has different tags. So let's just click on one of them. I'm going to click on love quotes. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that it has 100 pages. And we're going to create a loop so that we can loop through all those pages. But we're going to start with page 1. So that is the starting URL that we're going to be loading. So let's go ahead and copy this whole thing and make sure it has a tag in it and a page number. Let's paste it inside of our file here and comment it out for now. Now let's go ahead and create a URL variable with the URL value that we're going to be scraping, and then set the curl option to load that URL with curl opt URL and provide the URL as value here. And now we're ready to execute the curl to make sure everything works. For that, let's go ahead and store everything inside the result variable and use curl exec to execute the curl. And then let's go ahead and print out the result to make sure the page is being loaded, and view this in a browser. And if everything worked, you should get this page, and now we are ready to scrape the quotes. So to match the quotes and the author name, the first thing we're going to do is copy some text and go to view page source and then go to find in this page and paste the text inside the search. And now we're gonna look for a pattern. So look for the div class equals quote text. That is the div where the quote is located. And as you can see, it's got the left quote and the right quote symbol. So we want to match the text that is between those symbols. And we're also going to be matching the author of the quote, which is inside of the span class equals author or title. So let's go ahead and just copy this whole thing, and we're going to paste it inside of our file for reference. Let's go ahead and embed it inside of the comments. And now we have a pattern that we can use to match the quotes and the author name. To match all the quotes on the page, we're going to be using a function called pragMatchAll. And the first parameter this function accepts is the regular expression. That's going to be between the exclamation marks. The second parameter is our content, which is stored inside of the result. And finally, the third parameter is going to be the array, which will have our matches. So let's create the regular expression here. We want to just copy and paste this left quote symbol and then the right quote symbol. So we want to match those characters literally, and we want to match anything that is in between those characters, and for that we're going to use dot star question mark and put it inside of the parentheses. Then after the right quote, to match the author, we want to match any content that follows it. And as you can see, there's this break and some random characters here, so for that we're just going to put a dot star question mark here to match anything that is in between the right quote and the span class author. And then let's just copy the span class author after the question mark, paste it here, and then make sure to escape the double quotes. And then we're going to be matching the author name, which is between the span tags. So we're just going to put the same thing here, dot star and question mark, to match any author name. So that is what our regular expression looks like, and if everything worked, we should get the matches of the quotes along with the author name. So let's go ahead and use print R to print our matches and view this in a browser. And we have an unknown modifier. Okay, let's see what we did wrong. Oh, so this exclamation mark should be over here. Also, let's go ahead and use IS, and the I stands for case insensitive, and we're also putting S to match multi-line content. Okay, let's go ahead and view this in the browser now, and go to view page source, and as you can see, we have an array, and the array for 0 is matching the whole content. Let's scroll down here, and you should see that inside the array 1 we have the actual content that we're matching inside of the parentheses that we used here. So that is called a capture, and whenever we use the parentheses, it captures the content inside of the different array. So as you can see, we have a 1 and we have a 2. The 1 is the first capture, which captures our quotes, and the second capture is our author names. So now that we have the regular expression to match the quotes and author names, we can go ahead and create a loop to loop through all the pages and get the content from as many pages as we want, up to 100. Alright, so let's go ahead and code the loop. So before creating the loop, let's create a couple of variables. The first one is going to be the start page, and the second one is the end page. The start page, I'm going to set it to 1, and the end page, I'm gonna set it to just 3. And if you put a big number here, this number can be up to 100 pages. But if you put a large number, it's going to take a while to scrape all the quotes. So for now, just do a smaller number. And now let's go ahead and create the loop. So I'm gonna create a for loop. I'm gonna set the counter to start page, which is 1. And I'm gonna say less than or equal to end page, which is going to be 3 at this point. And we're just gonna increase the page counter by 1. Now let's go ahead and cut the regular expression and paste it inside the loop, and also cut out this part here of the curl inside the loop as well, because we're going to be loading a different URL inside the curl, and it has to be within the loop. So here, instead of number 1, we're just going to put $P, and then just make sure that we put the whole text inside of the double quotes so that our P counter counts as a variable. Alright, so since we're looping multiple pages, we're gonna need to create another array to store all of our quote data and save it inside of that array. So let's go ahead and create a new array, and we're just gonna call it data. And then let's go ahead and save our quotes inside of the quotes array. Remember that the quotes are inside the matches 1, which is the first capture here. And let's also save the authors inside of the authors array, which is inside of our second capture that we're matching over here. So at this point, we're gonna need to create another loop to loop through all the quotes so that we can save them inside of our data array. And again, we're doing this because we're looping through multiple pages, and in order to save all of our matches for the quotes and authors, we need to save all the data inside of another array. So let's go ahead and create a loop here. It's going to start from 0, and it's going to go until the count of quotes, which is the size of the quotes array, and then q++ to increase the count by 1. And here inside the loop, we're going to say data, and then for our first array key, we can use the p, which is going to be the page number. So if the page number is 1, it's going to be, this key is going to be 1, so that way we're going to be saving all the quotes in that one array key. And the next page is going to be 2, so it's going to save all the quotes and authors inside of that key, etc. Now I also just realized that we're going to need some kind of a counter that is going to be independent of the quotes counter and the pages counter. So we're just going to create a new variable here and call it counter, set it to 0, and inside of the for loop here, let's go ahead and increase the counter by 1. And then we're not going to be resetting the counter anywhere, so that way when it starts looping through another page, this counter is going to keep going, so that way it's going to save all the content within those pages on the same counter. So over here for the second array key, we're going to put counter, and then to save the quote, we're going to put it inside of the quote key, and finally set it to equal quotes q. And then we're also going to save the author. Going to do the same thing with p and counter, but instead of quote, we're going to put author, and then the value is going to be authors q. Okay, at this point we should loop through the 3 pages and print out all the quotes. So let's go ahead and print our data outside of the loop to see if everything worked. View this in a browser. Wait until it scrapes all the quotes, go to view page source, And as you can see, this is the structure of our array. So we have the page number and then the counter, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, and it keeps going and going and going. And there's about 29 records per page, so this is where the page counter increases to the next page. But as you can see, the counter keeps going, and that's what we want, so that the counter keeps going and it matches all the quotes and authors. And then there's page 3 and the counter keeps going. So we now have our quotes and authors matching up on multiple pages. But as you can see, the author looks a little weird. It's got some extra space in here, so for that, in order to clean it up, we're gonna use the trim functions. So let's go back to our code and use the trim to trim any extra spaces. And some of the authors also have a comma at the end of the author name, so for that we're gonna use the rtrim to trim the right side of the text. And for the second parameter, we're going to specify the comma to remove any commas from the author names. Save the file, open in the browser, view page source, and now our author names look clean. And now we're scraping the quotes from multiple pages. So the last thing I want to add here is the ability for our script to get different kinds of tags. So as you can see, if we click on the live tag, it has a live tag here in the URL. If I click on the love quotes, it has a love tag. So we want to create the functionality of being able to specify an array of tags so that we can loop through all those tags and scrape the quotes based on those tags as well. So let's go ahead and now add that functionality as well. So first, let's go ahead and create the array with all the tags that we want to match. Just make sure those tags exist on the actual page. So I'm gonna use the love, life, and let's say wisdom. So you can just put these inside of the array. And then we're simply going to create another loop for each loop to loop through the tags as tag. And make sure our page array is inside of our tags loop. And here inside of the URL, instead of the actual tag, we're simply just going to replace it with a $ tag, and that will replace it with the actual tag name, which is love, life, and wisdom. We're also going to need to modify our data structure a little bit. So instead of the page here, we're just going to put tag. So that way our data array is going to be restructured based on the tags, and everything else we can leave as it is. Also, just outside of the pages loop, we're going to reset the counter to 0. And that's because after we scrape all the quotes for one tag, the counter should be reset back to 0 to start the count of the new tag from the beginning. So that is the reason we're resetting it back to 0 after the pages loop. So at this point, our script is going to go through love, life, and wisdom tags, and it's also going to go through page 1 through 3 for all the individual tags, and it's going to scrape the quotes and authors from all those tags and pages for us. So let's go ahead and see if everything works. And it looks like I made a mistake somewhere, so let's go ahead and look at our code. Oh, okay, so instead of this should actually be tag as it is, but this is the word that we should be replacing with our variable. So instead of love, it should say tag variable, so that way it will replace this word with love, life, and wisdom, but the actual tag text should remain here. Okay, so let's go ahead and view this in the browser, and this should take a while to load because we're scraping a lot of pages now with all the different tags, 3 pages each. Now let's go to view page source and look at the structure of our array. As you can see, we have our tag, the counter, matching all the quotes along with the author names. Since we're scraping 3 pages, we should have about 90 records per tag, and then the second tag is life, and then we're resetting the counter back to 0. We're matching all the quotes from that tag on 3 pages. The next one is wisdom, and everything else works great. Okay, so at this point we got a really solid script that's able to match all the different tags, and you can load all these tags within the array variable. You can also increase the number of pages that the script scrapes by increasing the end page, and it will scrape a lot of quotes for you. So we are now done with the first part of the script, and the second part is going to be creating the database so that we can insert all the quotes and authors inside of a database.